Hello.
Hi.
Caleb Lords.
John Brownstone.
Of Loving BDSM, where we help kinksters like you have happy, healthy power exchange relationships. We're back to answer another one of your questions, and this week's question comes from a Dom. Hi. I love it when the dominants ask questions. Yay! This person worries that they're being unreliable as a dominant, and it's bothering them. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get straight into the question. Right off the top, am I unreliable or considerate? I'm struggling with my confidence as a daddy dom. I feel like I might be unreliable or unbelievable. My wife and I are in a 24/7 power exchange. I find myself telling her that I want us to do something before we go to bed, and by the time we get there, it's extra late, or she's exhausted, or life just happens. At that point, I normally say that we'll skip that thing, and it's not a big deal because sleep is more important. On one hand, I feel like it makes me seem like I keep going back on my word or I won't follow through. On the other hand, I feel like it's just being considerate and looking out for my wife/sub's best interest. It's a big struggle, and I feel like I may not be cut out to be a dom. How do you view these conflicting thoughts? What advice do you have? For context, we have 3 kids, ages 15, 13, and 9, who are involved in sports and school activities. We discovered DS in 2020, and it has been the best thing for us.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to say this. I want you to cut yourself some slack.
Right?
when life's, ain't nobody playing.
Yeah, no. Yeah. We know all too well when life's,
right.
You ain't fighting it. You don't fight it.
No.
So, no, I think, we both agree you need to cut yourself a little bit of slack. Life is life, and we all get tired, and sometimes things do not work out the way they should,
right?
Or we want them to, I should say. But with all that, I think what would work well with y'all, especially since you got a lot of stuff going on with the family, schedule the time. I think you really need to look at, scheduling the time and keeping that schedule open where you can sneak in some time and, there's no interruptions. You're not tired. And, sometimes that's the only way. It may not seem sexy, at the time and all that. But you know what? Life isn't like an erotic novel.
No, and in some ways, thank goodness, but also there's not enough lube in erotic novels.
Right.
When you schedule it, put it in your calendar, your Google, your whatever. And you don't have to label it kinky fuckery time now. Date night. Yeah. My favorite to do when the kids were younger and still actually going to a school is, we work for ourselves, so we have a lot more control over this. And so if you don't work for yourself, you have to kind of rely on your PTO or whatever your employer offers you. But we would take days off. The children would go to the school. We would drive away. We would go do something. It might just be for a couple hours in the morning. It might be the whole day. It might be that part of the day was devoted to fuckery and scening and whatever else, and then the rest of the day was like just being with one another and letting things be calm. It will not work out 100% of the time, but if you never plan for it, it's probably never going to happen. So maybe in a given month you take a half day off together. Maybe in another month you do a date night. If you are fortunate enough to have childcare, is your oldest old enough and responsible enough? Maybe not. I wouldn't have left the 15-year-old too long with his little brother back in the day. But, do you have somebody you can rely on to watch your children? Can they go to, a family member's house? Do y'all do sleepovers? Can somebody go hang out at somebody else's house and give you that time? And that way, I would not say stop promising something or saying that you might do something, at the end of the day, when you go to bed, whatever. I would just keep trying to do that as long as that feels like something you want to keep trying to do. But then also schedule in these other times. The other thing, and I have to remind JB of this all the time, I will take 10 minutes of kind of sleepy, kind of slow, not too involved, not too crazy, no props, kinky fuckery together over nothing for weeks and weeks. If all he can do is give me a hand spanking while I am bent over the bed, and he doesn't have to haul back and wail me, it's just like, it could be a few taps, that is better than nothing. So while I absolutely relate to the idea of it finally being time to go to your own bedroom and like close the door and shut the world out and being exhausted, some nights you will still be just too exhausted, but don't necessarily overthink it that even a small amount of kink isn't somehow worth it. It can be, because it maintains the connection that you have with your partner.
Absolutely.
Another thing I want to point out, though, and I know my biases, okay? JB is a daddy dom, and to me he is a quintessential daddy dom until he gets sadistic, and then I'm like, sadistic daddy did not have to come visit. You have labeled yourself a daddy dom. That, in my mind, with my own biases, tells me that you are a nurturer and a caregiver. That's kind of the umbrella that daddy and mommy and, whatever doms like that, caregiver doms fall under. So what you're doing at the end of the day when you see that your sub had a really hard day, or your sub is exhausted, or, both of you are exhausted and you're not going to make it through the next day if you stay up too late playing tonight, you are actually doing the job of a daddy dom. The job of a dom of any type is not to constantly be providing scenes. It is not constantly to be providing fuckery. There are other parts of dominance, and to me, this is a perfect example of it. Now, if you're dissatisfied with how often you have to kind of go back on your, I thought we were going to do this, but that's not a good idea tonight, that's when it's like, okay, so schedule some time. When I say this, hear me out, lower your expectations. And what I mean by that is go back to that whole idea of 5 to 10 minutes is better than 0 minutes, right? A light, easygoing moment between the two of you that taps into your mutual kinks is better than weeks upon weeks of absolutely zero, right? But you're already being a dominant by taking care of your partner.
Right.
As a daddy dom, that's kind of in the job description, right? So you don't have to, in my mind, you don't have to worry about whether you really are a dom or not, or you're an unreliable dom. Now it's really a matter of, okay, how do I prioritize this thing we have to keep skipping? Because if you have to continuously skip plans at night before you go to bed, then guess what? That means that at night before bed is not the time to be doing these things. And you might have to tweak that around a little bit. Also, ask your submissive how she feels. Does she feel like you're being unreliable, or is she kind of happy that you're making her go to sleep? Right? We can get as individuals, regardless of the side of the slash, we can get very wrapped up in our own heads about, am I a bad dom or sub? And we think that maybe we're not providing our partner with what they want, and maybe you're not. Maybe your sub would like some more fuckery in her life. But instead of getting yourself all twisted up trying to figure out how you're going to fix this on your own, talk to her. Yeah. She might have suggestions that you haven't thought about. She might be very grateful for the nights you let her sleep. You just don't know until you have that conversation.
True. And, another thing kind of popped into my head, if at all possible, you talk about how sometimes the evening gets away from you. Maybe you can sit down and look and, a little time management.
Could be.
Kind of what is the nightly routine? Is there things that you can, adjust to give yourself a little more time in the evening? That's something to think about too.
Are there things that your kids could take more responsibility on? And okay, I say this as an indoor cat parent. Like, my kids did not do the sport ball thing, okay? But is this each kid has their own activities, or is this each kid has multiple activities? Do they need to do multiple activities? Can somebody help help them deal with their activities? Like, what can you might not be able to. It might just be, this is your life right now, but it's worth looking into how can we adjust the, there's a word I want, and I hate it when that happens. But how can we adjust our life in order to make more time for us as partners. In your mind, you're thinking of it maybe for kink purposes or power exchange purposes. But this is no different than a non-kink couple needing to get some damn time to themselves, right?
Very true.
This is a universal problem of couples everywhere, especially if you're caregiving, whether it's children or your parents or you're doing both, right? Like, it's going to take its toll. It's not going to happen organically most of the time. Certain seasons of life, it's just not. It's just not. And so you have to configure your life around the things that matter to you, and your relationship with each other clearly matters to you. That doesn't mean your children don't. Doesn't mean you need to ignore all of their needs, but what can be adjusted to just give you both some breathing space, not even in a kink context, just as parents, right? Like, what can you adjust where maybe a kid has a little bit more responsibility? Maybe they don't need to do those 18 things they'd really like to do. Or, and this was easier as the kids get older. Our oldest, we did this a lot. I was like, who can you ride with? Do I have to drive you? Because if I don't have to drive you, I'm not. Yeah. And man, not having to drive a kid somewhere, whoo, that will save so much time.
That was a big load off right there.
But those are seasons in life. Your kids might have to be older. Things might have to change. Like, it's the nature of the beast. So I think being really mindful and purposely planning time outside of, we'll do it at night, we'll do it before bed, and trying to just do it organically, I think that's worth it. I also think, look at how things can adjust all the way around just to give y'all some more time.
Yeah.
But the thing I would not do is be down on yourself because you're not giving your partner as much fuckery as y'all would like, as many scenes as you would like, as whatever it is you're saying, hey, we'll do, and then you're not able to do, because what you are doing is taking care of her and yourself. And maybe what you need to do is stop promising so much fuckery that's not scheduled or planned for. Maybe stop saying, hey, we'll do that thing later. Hey, we'll do that thing later. And either say, hey, do we have 20 minutes right now? Can we go do that thing? When do you want to try to do that thing? Or having a conversation with your partner where it's like, hey, maybe let's work into our nighttime routine some level of fuckery. We do that. It's sometimes the only fuckery we get for weeks. I have to ask permission to go to bed. It's part of our, power exchange routine. But I do that naked and bent over the bed. I might get a butt rub. I might get my ass whooped. Either way, I'm good. But we've created a routine that leaves room for the fuckery, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. It's just going to be, is it 30 seconds? Is it 15 minutes? And that might be something to think about.
And, it's not even so much about the fuckery, because, there are times I spank her. There are times I just rub her butt, but it's about the connection. It is about the connection. And that's what it really all comes down to.
And if you can find ways to connect consistently enough, and consistently does not mean every single day all the time, but consistently enough so that you don't have to make, the assurances, hey, tonight we'll do this, tonight we'll do that. Build it into your routine where you can, and find little ways to connect that are meaningful to both of you. Like it might not be bent over a bed, saying, Daddy, can I go to bed? And you have to get like however many smacks he feels like giving you that. It doesn't have to be, but if anybody would like to steal that idea, go for it.
Right.
But that's another part of it. Like we have our bedtime routine so set regardless of what time we go to bed, right? When the kids were big in their activities, some nights you could go to bed at a reasonable time, and some nights they weren't getting back from a school thing until midnight. But our routine always stayed the same. And JB can drive the is it a spanking or is it just a butt rub portion based on his energy levels, based on my energy levels, but we know we're going to have that moment.
Right.
So, I think you're doing better than you realize, because you just asked the question. You're thinking about it in these terms. Bad doms do not care about their partner.
That's absolutely true.
They do not care if they're doing a good job.
Absolutely true.
They care about what they're getting and only what they're getting. So
as you were reading the question, that was the first thing I'm thinking of. It's like, this person, they're thinking they're not
right. You're assessing the situation. You're realizing things aren't going the way you think they will go, or that you are assuring your partner they will go.
Yeah.
And you're trying to make it better. promise you, shitty doms do not do that.
That is right.
Unreliable doms don't do that.
Yep.
So you're doing better. There's just some tweaks you can make. And don't leave your partner out of the conversation. No. She may have some good ideas. She might have been thinking about some stuff.
You know, some of the best things that we've come up with sometimes are when the two of us sit down and brainstorm.
It's a good reason to go have a coffee somewhere.
Yep, there you go.
And when we're broke, we just drive in the car and we just talk. So however you can do it, whenever you can do it, but I'm a firm believer, put it in your calendar. And do it midday at times when you don't have parental responsibilities. They're off being educated by somebody else. If that is if you're like us and you got one at home for their education, it is different, and I haven't figured it out yet either. But if they're going somewhere else, or they are old enough to watch over themselves and able to, I'm a big middle of the day kind of person. Okay, so we are not the only kinksters who go through this. If you can relate to this person's question and have figured some things out or are trying some things, please feel free to share those in the comments below. We can all learn from one another. If you have your own question, there's a link in the description box below where you can submit it and it'll show up as one of these videos. Yay! If you enjoy this, we love a thumbs up. If you like it enough to want to come back, please consider subscribing.
And, if you do all that, go ahead and ring the notification bell to get updates of new content.
Just do what Daddy says. If you really like what we do, want to help us do more of it, and get access to extra content and a Discord server, you can join us on Patreon, patreon.com/KaylaLords, or the link is down below.